Hello viewers, today I am going to present the new story, The Final Victory from Ace with Esther. So let's see what's there. Hello friends, The Final Victory from the book Ace with Esther. It's an extract from the novel The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Khaled Hosseini was born on 4th March 1965. He is an American novelist and a physician too. He was a doctor. After graduating from college, he worked as a doctor in California, and after that, getting married, he published 3 novels. Most notably, in 2003, he got The Kite Runner published. In all his novels, he mainly went for the protagonist from Afghanistan. He was basically from Afghanistan. So, this novel, Kite Runner, is written on the base of the traditions followed in Afghanistan. After the success of this novel, The Kite Runner, he retired from the medicine and stepped into the business of writing for full time. Earlier, it was his part time job, his hobby to write, but later on, he adopted it as a profession. Now, children, open the book and let's see what is there in the story. We are going to read that extract. It is from The Kite Runner. The kite fighting tournament was an old winter tradition in Afghanistan. It started early in the morning on the day of the contest and didn't end until only the winning kite flew in the sky. However, the day ends. Evening also ends. But until only one kite is left, the tournament is never declared finished. Once the tournament outlasted means survived, daylight, people gathered on sidewalks and roofs to cheer for their kids. The street filled with kite fighters jerking and tugging on their lines, squinting up to the sky, trying to gain position to cut the opponents. This was the tournament in which kite was flown and the line of the kite was cut by the opponents. When the line of the kite is cut, then only the point comes to the winner. Otherwise, the tournament is carried on. Opponent's line. Every kite fighter had an assistant, in my case, Hassan, who held the spool and fed the line. Hassan was the helper of the protagonist who used to take care of the spool. Spool means reel on which the thread is coiled. The fun began when the kite was cut. That was where the big kite runners came in. Those kids who chased the wind blown kite drifting through the neighborhoods until it came spiraling down in a field, dropping in someone's yard, on a tree or a rooftop. The chase got pretty fierce. People run violently behind the kite which was cut because it was spiraling in the wind in the sky. So there was no support in it, so it was flown away by the wind, and people, the kite runners, used to run behind it. So it was the tradition that was followed there. Hordes of kite runners swamped the street, shoved past each other like those people from Spain I had read about once, the ones who ran from the bulls. Now, here he has talked about a tradition, an old tradition in Spain, where the people go for bullfighting and they irritate the bull, and the bull used to attack them and they run to save themselves. So people run behind the kites as if they are being chased by some bull in Spain. Hordes mean crowd. In a crowd way, so many people used to run after one kite. They shoved, means they moved around behind the spiraling kite. One year, a neighborhood kid climbed a pine tree for a kite. Here, the writer is talking about an incident which took place last year. A branch snapped under his weight and he fell 30 feet, getting severely injured. You can see how much risky it was. A neighborhood kid who climbed the pine tree for a kite fall down since his weight was not tolerated by the branch and it was snapped down, getting severely injured. But he fell with the kite still in his hand. You can see the passion of the kite runner, that in spite of being fallen down from the tree which was 30 feet high, from that much distance he still tried to save the kite, not his limbs. And he fell with the kite still in his hand, and when a kite runner had his hand on a kite, no one could take it from him. That wasn't a rule, that was the custom. The person who touched the kite, who held the kite, was considered as the winner, and it was accepted by others. Nobody used to snatch it from him, from his hands. This was the tradition, this was the custom. For the kite runners, the most coveted prize was the last fallen kite of winter tournament. It was a trophy of honor, something to be displayed on a mantle for guests to admire. When the kite cleared the skies, when the sky cleared the of kites and only the final two remained, every kite runner readied himself for the chance. So, this was the main desire of the kite runners to get the last cut kite because it was like a showpiece to be displayed on the wall of their guest room to be admired. It was the most coveted prize. Coveted means desired. It was the desire of the kite runners to get the last kite. Now let's see the questions which we have read. The portion which we have read, whether you have understood or not. In which season the kite flying tournament was held? If you got the answer, put your answer in the comment. And let's see how many of you have understood. Was Hassan the kite flying main player? No, he was the helper. What scene took place after the kite was cut? People used to run as a crowd behind the kite to get that. What scene took place after the kite was cut? People were seen running. What does the run from bull indicates? It is the tradition of Spain in which the people used to irritate a bull and run to save themselves, which is known as bullfighting. From where did the kid fall down? Why did he climb the tree? The question's first answer is hidden in the second question. The kid fall down from the tree. Why did he climb? He climbed the tree to get the prize. That was the kite. What meant by the honor in the tournament? It was the honor to become the last kite flyer, and it was also considered as honor to have the last kite cut. Now let's carry it on further. He positioned himself at a spot that he thought would give him a head start. Tense muscles readied themselves to uncoil, necks craned, eyes crinkled, fights broke out, and when the last kite was cut, all hell broke loose. Over the years, I had seen a lot of guys run kites, but Hassan was by far the greatest kite runner I had ever seen. It was downright eerie the way he always got to the spot the kite would land before the kite did, as if he had some sort of inner compass. Inner compass means compass is the device in which is used to learn about the distance. He was an expert Hassan was the expert kite runner who used to know where the kite would go, and he used to reach that place as if he was having a compass inside his brain. The day of the tournament dawned. Day means came. Sun rose on the day when the tournament was fixed. Streets glistened with fresh snow, and the sky was blameless blue. Fresh snow had fallen from the sky, and streets glistened with it. Streets were shining with the sunrise as the snow was fallen in the streets, and the sky was pure blue. Snow blanketed every rooftop and weighed on the branches of the stunted mulberry trees that lined our street. I heard Baba mutter a prayer under his breath. He always said a prayer when I left the house. Baba, his father. He called his father as Baba. As the day had come, his father was also tensed because once in his childhood he was also a good kite flyer or kite runner, you can say. The rooftops and the branches of mulberry trees were blanketed with the fallen snow, and in that condition he was going to leave the house for the tournament, and his father was praying for his betterment. I had never seen so many people on our streets. Kids were flinging snowballs, squabbling, chasing one another, giggling. Kite fighters were huddling with their pool holders and making last minute preparations. Now all the people were out in the street. Small kids were playing with the snowballs, and the kite fighters were preparing for the tournament. They were preparing their kites and threads which they need in the tournament. From adjacent streets, I could hear laughter and chatter. Already rooftops were jammed with spectators reclining, blaring from cassette players. I turned my gaze to our rooftop, found Baba and Rahim Khan sitting on a bench, both dressed in wool sweaters, sipping tea. Baba waved. I couldn't tell if he was waving to me or Hassan. Now they came in the street. They were preparing for the tournament. They could listen people coming from the adjacent streets, and they were all very much excited, including the kite runners and the spectators. Now the question is, what could be seen on the rooftop? If you know the answer, put it in the comment. Where could Baba be seen sitting and with whom? Where was he seen? On the rooftop. With whom? Rahim Khan. What was he doing? He was sipping tea. What were they wearing? They were wearing woolen clothes. Why did author want to repack and go back home? This we are going to do the next. Actually, his father was also a good kite runner. He was the good kite flyer, and by seeing him, this Mr. Kite Flyer was tensed. We should get started, Hassan said. He wore black rubber snow boots and a bright green chapan over a thick sweater and faded corduroy pant. Sunlight washed over his face, and in it I saw how well the pink scar above his lip had healed. Suddenly, I wanted to withdraw. He wanted to go back. Pack it all in, go back home. What was I thinking? Why was I putting myself through this? When I already knew the outcome, Baba was on the roof watching me. He was tensed when he came to know that his father is watching them. I felt his glare on me like the heat of a blistering sun. This would be a failure on a grand scale, even for me. I am not sure I want to fly a kite today, I said. It's a beautiful day, Hassan said. I shifted on my feet, tried to peel my gaze away from our rooftop. I don't know, maybe we should go home. And he started gazing away. He tried to escape his eyes from the rooftop, and he was willing to go back home. Then he stepped towards me and in a low voice said something that scared me a little. Who stepped further? Who is he over here? Hassan. He stepped forward, went to him and talked. Remember Amir Aga. The protagonist's name is Amir. It is declared over here. There is no monster, just a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. There is nothing to worry. There is nothing scaring here. Nobody is going to harm you. No demon is here. How could I be such an open book to him when half the time I had no idea what was milling around in his hand? I was the one who went to school, the one who could read, write. I was the smart one. Hassan couldn't read a first grade textbook, but he had read me plenty. Now he was considering himself as more expert than Hassan. He was considered as a more learned person than Hassan, as Hassan was not even able to read the book of first grade, but he could read and write on his own. That was a little unsettling, but also sort of comfortable to have someone who always knew what you needed. No monster, I said. Yes, there is no monster. Feeling a little better to my own surprise, he smiled. No monster. Are you sure? Now, are you sure? Are you going to move further? Are you going to participate in the tournament? He closed his eyes, nodded. I looked at the kids scampering. Scampering means to move about or proceed hurriedly. I looked at the kids scampering down the street, flinging snowballs. It is a beautiful day, isn't it? Let's fly, he said. Let's do it, I said. Hassan's face brightened. Good, he said. He lifted our kite, red with yellow borders, and just beneath where the central and crossbars met, thick wooden cross marked with Sappho's unmistakable signature. That was the signature of Sappho. He licked his finger and held it up, tested the wind, then ran its direction. On those rare occasions we flew kites in the summer, he had kicked up dust to see which way the wind blew. He kicked the dust and saw what way the wind blew. The spool rolled in my hands until Hassan stopped. About 50 feet away, he, the protagonist, Amir, loosened the reel and it started uncurling. As the kite was in the hands of Hassan, he took it away and the spool in his hand unreeled about 50 feet thread. He held the kite high over his head like an Olympic athlete showing his gold medal. I jerked the string twice, our usual signal, and Hassan tossed the kite. Hassan raised the kite to set it into the air, and just then Amir gave a plunge. He tossed the kite, and the kite was in the sky. I took deep breath, exhaled, and pulled on the string. Within a minute, my kite was rocketing to the sky. The kite soared high into the sky. It made a sound like a paper bird flapping its wings. Hassan dabbed his hands, whistled, and ran back to me. I handed him the spool holding on to the string, and he spun it quickly to roll the loose string back on. At least 24 kites already hung in the sky like paper sharks roaming for prey. Within an hour, the number doubled, and red and blue and yellow kites glided and spun in the sky. A cold breeze wafted through my hair. The wind was perfect for kite flying, blowing just hard enough to give some lift, make the sweeps easier. Next, soon the cutting started, and the first of the defeated kites whirled out of control. Now, he is talking about the start of the tournament. Wafted means drifted. Just then, when the kite was tossed in the air, he started his operation. Within a minute, he was able to send the kite in the sky. It made sound like a paper bird. Now the kite is compared to the paper bird, and in the next lines it is compared with the paper shark. Shark, the fish, who is carnivorous and is found in the sea. Like paper sharks roaming for prey, he says, like paper sharks. A kite is made of paper and it was roaming in the air like shark used to roam in the water in order to find its prey. The kite was also finding its prey to cut other kites. So it is compared with a shark. When the cold breeze came, the wind was perfect for the kite flying. Because for flying kites, wind is needed. Pleasant wind is needed. Gentle breeze is needed. Soon the cutting started. Now when the first kite was cut, it was considered defeated. It whirled out of control. They fell from the sky like shooting stars with brilliant rippling tails, showering the neighborhoods below with prizes for the kite runners. And soon after that, number of kites were cut one by one, and they were seen whirling around in the sky, which were the prizes of the kite runners. I could hear the runners now hollering as they ran the street. Someone shouted reports of a fight breaking out 2 streets down. Hollering means shouting. They went behind shouting at each other, and soon they came to know that 2 streets ahead, the kite runners had a big fight. I kept stealing glances at Baba, sitting with Rahim Khan on the roof and wondering what he was thinking. Was he cheering for me? Or did a part of him enjoy watching my fail? They were coming down all over the place now, the kites, and I was still flying. He was flying, and side by side he was thinking about Baba. He kept stealing the glances. He was not making any eye contact with Baba, with his father and Rahim Khan, who were sitting on the rooftop. He was wondering whether they are thinking about him. Are they going to cheer him, or they are enjoying his failure? It was all complex, carried on in his mind. I was still flying, but my eyes kept wandering over to Baba, bundled up in his wool sweater. Was he surprised? I had lasted as long as I had. Still, he was wondering over the thoughts of Baba. You don't keep your eyes to the sky. You won't last much longer. I snapped my gaze back to the sky. A red sky was closing in on me. I had caught it just in time. I tangled a bit with it, ended up blasting him when he became impatient and tried to cut me from below. And just then, when he was thinking about Baba, a red colored kite came to get entangled with him. Up and down the street, kite runners were returning triumphantly, their captured kites held high. They showed them off to their parents, their friends, but they all knew the best was yet to come. The biggest prize of all was still flying. I sliced a bright yellow kite with a coiled white tail. It cost me another gash on the index finger and blood trickled down into my palm. I had Hassan holding the string and sucked the blood dry, blotted my finger against my jeans. And just then he saw the kite runners coming back triumphantly, very happily, cheering and showing their kites held high. Because it was a prize, it was an honor for them. And in this way, he was saying that they all, in spite of getting that kite, they were waiting for the biggest prize. Which was the biggest prize? The last cut kite. And just then, by seeing all around, his care loosened a little and he got a cut in his finger. He took the help of Hassan. He made him hold the string and sucked the blood from his finger and blotted it with the help of his jeans. Within another hour, the number of surviving kites dwindled from maybe 50 to a dozen. In the next hour, the kites, which were around 50 in the sky, were shrinked to a dozen. I was one of them. He was one of those 12 kite flyers. I had made it to the last dozen. I knew this part of the tournament would take a while because the guys who had lasted this long were good. They wouldn't easily fall into simple traps like the old lift and dive. Hassan's favorite trick. Hassan's favorite trick was old lift and dive. He used to lift the kite high in the sky and then dive to entangle the competent's kite. So now all the experts were there in the sky. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, tufts of clouds had drifted in and the sun had slipped behind them. Shadows started to lengthen. The spectators on the roof bundled up in scarves and thick coats. We were down to a half dozen, and I was still flying. And then the count came from dozen to half dozen. Now there were only six, and the people, those who were on the rooftops, started coming down as the sun was also down. It was evening time now, after 3 o'clock, and clouds were also there. So the weather became colder than earlier. So they were bundled up in their scarves and thick coats, and they came down near to them. My legs ached and my neck was stiffed. For the whole time he kept standing and watching the sky, so his neck was also stiffened. But with each defeated kite, hope grew in my heart like snow collecting on a wall, one flake at a time. My eyes kept returning to a blue kite that had been wreaking havoc for the last hour. How many has he cut? I asked. I counted 11, Hassan said. Do you know whose it might be? Hassan clucked his tongue and tipped his chin. That was a trademark Hassan's gesture. Meant he had no idea. The blue kite sliced a big purple one and swept twice in big loops. 10 minutes later, he had cut another two, sending hordes of kite runners racing after them. Now it was the tournament ending. He could see the most fierce one was the blue kite in front of him. It was the last hour, and the blue kite, who was a sort of great destruction for them, he wanted to know about that fellow. How many has he cut? He is asking his assistant, Hassan. He said that I have counted 11. The count might be more, but the successful count he made was 11. And who were they? He didn't know. He just made a gesture which he usually used to make and say, no idea. Just then he saw blue kite sliced a big purple one and swept twice in big loops. The purple kite was cut and it started looping away. 10 minutes later, he had cut another two, sending hordes of kite runners. Hordes, the crowds of kite runners behind them, and two were cut. After another 30 minutes, only 4 kites remained, and I was still flying. It seemed I could hardly make a wrong move, as if every gust of wind blew in my favor. I had never felt so in command, so lucky. It felt intoxicating. I didn't look up to the roof didn't dare take my eyes off the sky. I had to concentrate, play it smart. Another 15 minutes, and what had seemed like a laughable dream that morning had suddenly become a reality. It was just me and the other guy, the blue kite. Now, it was the last moment. Within the 30 minutes, four more kites were cut off. And now he saw in another 15 minutes the moment he was in need of came, and there were only two now. The blue kite, the tension in the air was as taut as the glass string I was tugging with my bloody hands. His hands were also cut, his hands were bleeding, and with those hands he stretched his glassy string very tight. People were stamping their feet, clapping, whistling, chanting, Bobrush, Bobrush. Cut him, cut him. I wondered if Baba's voice was one of them. And he heard his father even cheering him up over there. Music blashed, and when he felt that his father is also cheering, the music blashed. The smell of steamed mantu and fried pakoras drifted from rooftop and open doors. But all I heard, all I willed myself to hear was the thudding of blood in my head. All I saw was the blue kite. All I smelled was victory, salvation, redemption. If Baba was wrong and there was a God like they said in school, then he had left me win. I didn't know what the other guy was playing for. Maybe just bragging rights, but this was my one chance to become someone who was looked at, not seen, listened to, not heard. Now, his competition was with the greatest kite flyer, who was with the blue kite, and it was, since it was the last time he could all hear was the victory, he could all see was the victory, he could all smell was the victory. He didn't see anything other than his victory, because his father was also cheering him up, and this made him feel that even God wants him to win. The courage developed, and suddenly, just like that, hope became knowledge. I was going to win. It was just a matter of when. It turned out to be sooner than later. A gust of wind lifted my kite, and I took advantage. Just then, the wind lifted his kite, and he took the advantage, fed the string, and pulled up. He fed the string means he loosened the string and then pulled it up. The looped my kite on top of the blue one. I held position. The blue kite knew it was in trouble. It was trying desperately to maneuver out of the jam, but I didn't let go. I held position. The crowd sensed the end was at hand. The chorus of cut him grew louder. You are almost there, Amir Aga, almost there. Hassan was panting. Everyone was cheering him that he could do it. Then the moment came. I closed my eyes and loosened my grip on the string. It sliced my finger again as the wind dragged it. And then I didn't need to hear the crowd's roar to know. I didn't need to see either. Hassan was screaming and his arm was wrapped around my neck. Bravo, bravo, Amir Aga. He won the tournament. And that fierce kite which troubled him was away, cut away, and was whirling in the sky. So, this is all about the story. I hope you all have understood. If there is any query, you may put it in the comment. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Do like, share, and subscribe the channel if you are new. Next, we are coming with the summary of the lesson and the question answer part. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you.